Welcome back to the Criminal Connection King of Clubs series and the continuation of Chapter 8, where we're getting down and getting dirty. Chapter 8, will the real Terry Turbo please stand up? And all this was going on behind the scenes. You know, at every garage nation, there was still all the shit to deal with. Same at One Nation, only it was much fucking worse. At One Nation, we had to contend with muggers with knives. With the Garage Nation events, we had guns. That seemed to be the big problem. You know, we had all these fucking street kids whose idea of fighting was to basically fucking shoot the place up. I mean, most of those who came out planning to cause aggro came armed. You know, they didn't come for a fight. It all seemed to fucking boil down to respect and status and how cool they thought they looked. And it didn't help when you had garage acts at the time who made it to the top of the UK charts and being in the fucking newspaper for their association with violence and guns. You had all these 20 American stars posing around with their fucking 9mm. The garage kids were inspired by these people and were dangerous, not because they were like tough, they never fight you, because they were arrogant little cunts who just could not be told. You tell them they couldn't come in, they start yelling about how you were dissing them, and next thing you know, they're waving a fucking gun around. Sometimes they didn't even need an excuse, you know. A lot of them truly believed that they owned everything they could see, and we were on their patch. It was a fucking dangerous combination, and one which caught a few people out. Punters and doormen were dropping like flies. My mate Felix, another doorman who worked for us, got shot in the leg by some kid in a queue to get in a club. It wasn't one of my events, thank God. Him and this kid had like a minor argument about, you know, queuing up, and the guy wouldn't queue up. So he just fucking pulled a gun out and shot him. I mean, completely fucking unnecessary. A stupid argument with some dickhead could cost you your life. I mean, we had metal detectors and shit, but the available technology was in its infancy and we just couldn't stop every gun carrier. All we could do was their best, you know, and jump on any fucker who ever mentioned guns, because we knew that they weren't making idle threats. When they said they'd be back to shoot the place up, they'd do it. Obviously, we did our best to keep the guns out. With the metal detectors, we had careful searches, the lot. But some still got past us incredibly. Sometimes it was through the DJs. They were like smuggling guns in for their mates in their record boxes. I mean, this stuff is unbelievable. You know, hiding guns in their fucking record boxes and then handing them back in the club. You know, I found this out because one of my mates came up to me in the club and said, "Look at this, brandishing a handgun." It was a tasty little 9mm Glock automatic. How the fuck did you get that in? And he told me, and I went fucking mental. And just like all the other fuckers who stepped out of line, I made an example of DJ fucking gun smuggler. I had him beaten up badly and thrown out on his ass. The muggy little prick. I mean, in hindsight, we should let a few fucking rounds off in his leg, right, and play the shit tune just to let him know how fucking dangerous a gun in a club could be. I mean, they thought they were the coolest thing in the world, that the world wrapped around them, you know, knives, powder, pills, anything that wasn't allowed, they try and bring it in. There was this geezer called MC Sparks, who's, you know, he's dead now, but he smashed a wine bottle across a girl's face in one of the clubs. I mean, pleasant chap, but I'll be honest with you, he was lucky to get out of there alive because he was in serious danger from everyone. Even the venue security had their fucking sleeves rolled up. Thank God it wasn't at one of my events. Just when everything had calmed down, the bird went to her car and come back to the club waving a gun around, threatening to shoot him. Police were called and she got arrested. I mean, she was lucky, really. With the amount of weapons in there, someone could have easily have blown her away before we called 999. I mean, we had a serious set to up at the Sanctuary in Milton Keynes. There was a gang of 20 or so guys from Manchester, and they turned up, and supposedly they were one of the, you know, there's all these different groups of gangs in Manchester, and they were one of the most notorious young black gangster firms, responsible for dozens of shootings and deaths up north. They never used to call it Manchester, they always used to call it Gunchester. To be honest, they could have been calling the gang for all I cared. I mean, they were all there in their hoodie, homeboy baggy clothes, giving it all that shit about respect and saying they didn't want to pay at the door. I'm not running a fucking charity event, boys. I don't care who you are. There's no way you're coming here unless you fucking pay. In the end, they grudgingly handed over the wedge. Like I said, now if you come in and fuck around in my club, you're going to get hurt. Respect us and we'll respect you. Sorted. About an hour later, the punters started leaving the event, and I mean big numbers of them. And it was only like midnight, and the rave was only really just starting to get going. And it finished at 6 a.m, so something was definitely up. I nosed around and found out our friends from Manchester were the guys causing all the trouble. They had their hoods up, they were like starting on people, they were like kicking girls up the arse. I mean, it was pathetic, really, you know. And then when the guy turned around and said, "What are you doing?" they punched him in the face and threatened him. So there was no option. These guys had to go. Called the venue security over, and I said to them, "Look, I want all these lads thrown out."
The house team shit themselves and just refused. They didn't want to get involved. So we'd have to do it ourselves. Not a problem. Causing an aggro in their event. I know they were going to get smashed up. We got a few of the guys together and we approached, and one of the fellas got right up in my face and was telling me how it was. He obviously got educated. Right behind me, all the lads are snarling like a pack of kamikaze pilots, knowing they were down in numbers, but going in regardless, knowing that we're going to come out on top. There was fucking enemy claret all over the floor. I mean, you'd think a big posse like that would have been a bit tasty, wouldn't you? But sadly for them, they weren't. We bashed a few of them randomly, and then they scattered, then linked arms to charge them and force them out the fire doors down the far end of the club. On the way out, we were still clumping and kicking them. It was a bit of a struggle, but the lads all looked like they were enjoying it, and they were. The likes of Gary and John towered above everyone, even them forward and bringing their fists down on them like sledgehammers. With John pushing you, it fucking moved. You have no choice. With all the lights and the lasers and strobes, you saw everything in slow motion. Each punch we threw was a leveler, with no time for hanging around. Bang, next. Bang, next. Bang, next. We definitely knew after the beating they got, they weren't going to be fucking coming back in a hurry. One of their dormant Scooby was outside protecting the back doors, so once they were thrown outside, he gave him a slap too. Animal and Warrior started grabbing them, arms and legs, and flinging them into this huge ditch by the grass verge outside. The One Nation's crew mass burial site. There was blood, teeth, groaning, squealing bodies everywhere. You always find humour in this sort of thing, and seeing all these geezers piled up outside was the laughter that we needed. They were all either knocked out or close to it, and there must have been 20 of them in 5 or 10 minutes with just 8 of us. We had a bit of a chuckle, walked back into the club, shut the doors, job done. Then one of the boys who was literally in the car park that was, he was basically keeping his eyes out, come through on the radio and said, they've all gone to their cars. I'm watching them now. They're putting on body armour, balaclavas. Oh, f*** me, they're pulling guns out. They look like they're fucking getting ready for a war. Four and the gang were coming back in a hurry after all. I mean, that surprised me, I must be honest. I mean, I thought they'd fuck off after the kicking they'd had. But what a fucking pisser. But now they wanted to shoot us for finishing something that they'd started. Fucking brilliant. I mean, that was the mentality of these geezers. When it's mine or my mum's safety at risk, I had to take all the right precautions, and you need the ultimate tools handy if it all turns really bad. I never asked who was carrying because I didn't want to know, and the only details I needed were that someone would be ready, willing, and very able. And then it hit me. Earlier that day, I'd had a call from the manager of the club warning me about being tooled up. There had been allegations that someone from the venue security staff was dealing drugs, and the police had been down a few times and were just basically conducting random searches on them. If they suspected you, you couldn't refuse to be searched. So there was no bats, no koshes, no CS gas, no dusters, nothing. So we locked the doors and called 999. And believe me, they were like shit off a shovel. They must have been, the armed response unit was outside that club within a minute. It was that quick. I mean, they were tooled up like Terminator 7, They must have known something was amiss that night. So the police rounded up all these guys, found the balaclavas, a bulletproof vest, searched them, but they couldn't find any firearms. They didn't even find a water pistol, and it turned out one of their mates had sped off with all the guns on a motorbike. Police had to let them go, which I found pretty fucking amazing, despite the lack of guns. What did they think they were going to do? Fucking go paintballing? They knew the gang were and what they were up to. The head of the police unit came into the club and he went, look, these guys are a serious firm from Manchester. We haven't found any guns now, but you can bet that they're getting back as quickly as they've got rid of them. Your card's marked, basically. I need to get you and your team out of here as quickly as possible. I mean, what a fucking downer. The event had to go on without us. This was the first and only time this has ever happened. The old Bill told us they'd drive us out of town with an armed escort. They waited for us at the front while I got everybody together for a head count. Because a lot of the boys were time-served ex-military and all a bit naughty in their own right and had a few quid to play with, there were a few top-of-the-range Mercs and Range Rovers and BMWs outside. The coppers all stared open-mouthed as we drove their motors round from the back. Their jaws really dropped as we got kitted up in flak jackets, night vision goggles and encrypted radios. Air gear was more advanced than theirs. We were given an armed escort out of there. I was sat in the back of a Range Rover in silence with my mum, looking out at these police cars, either side of me thinking, has it really come to this? And once we were safely out of the area, the police left us to continue on their own. We were still a little bit uncertain. I mean, when things like this happen, you're all a little bit sort of paranoid that something else is going to happen. And out in front of our convoy was a mate of mine, and he just bought this new Astra van. So he phones me and he goes, "Oh, I'm really worried, mate." He said, "I'm sure they're waiting for us or watching, and they might try and fucking ram into us." And he had a few little F words in there as well. And I tried to calm him down, reassuring him as best I could without worrying my mum. I'd actually got it all a bit wrong, though. He didn't give a fuck about the danger. It was his car that he was worrying about. "I'm only insured third-party foreign theft," he said. "And I'm worried that if they fucking try and ram us, I will actually take them out and I won't be covered on my insurance." If he wasn't so serious about it, I would have pissed myself laughing on the spot. I said, "Look, mate, if anybody rams us and you have to use the car to fucking take them out, do not worry about the fucking insurance. Just smash them off the road and I'll buy you a new fucking car." All right. I mean, it was priceless. And it certainly took my mind off the fucking gang on the way home. I was actually having visions of him trying to swap insurance details with some Manchester mobster while dodging bullets. Why couldn't people just have a fight and sort out their differences on the spot? Those geezers or gangsters, as they love to be called, tried it on and got fucked up. End of story. After that incident, we made a conscious effort to make sure that if someone stepped out of line, they were smashed up to the point that they couldn't fucking walk to their car and they wouldn't even be able to fucking lift up again, even if they had one. Our biggest mistake with these twats had been in only knocking them about a bit. In future, if we let anybody off so lightly, we might not live to regret it. We run parties at the Rex in Stratford, and that was a fucking rough shithole. And to be honest, John used to say to me, "Why the fuck are we doing this place again? I fucking hate it." So I used to send him to have a little look around the fucking loudest rooms, where I knew he'd hate it even more.
Introducing a proper raw men's fashion brand that has untamed energy inspired by relentless warriors while remaining cheeky and rebellious. Simeon Saboteur is not just about style. This brand is a movement and a rebellion against the ordinary. This clothing is crafted for those that face life head on. Our new collection fuses classic design with modern edge. If you want to express your true warrior identity, strength and boldness, then join our tribe of real modern men. Explore our collection of casual wear, active gear and statement pieces that are as unique as you are. Our new collection is now live, and as a special treat for our Criminal Connection podcast crew, use this fantastic discount code BANANA5 on the checkout for an exclusive 5% discount off your first order. Visit www.simeonsaboteur.com. Check them out in the link below.
The first time we did the Rex, we had around 25 people mugged on their way in. And it was fucking eating me up inside that these cunts had got away with it. I drove home that night and I was so fucking angry with myself, really, for not being able to do more, to not have fucking been able to protect these kids from getting fucking mugged. So the next day, after I had a bit of sleep, I drove back up to Stratford, parked up, and I walked around all the side streets, looked for all these hiding places to just see where these fuckers were hiding. So when we did our next event, I doubled up the security. But I said to the guys, "Don't fucking come security, guys. Just wear tracksuits, jeans, trainers. And I just want you to wander around and find these cunts and just fucking give it to them." So they blended in. And it was actually quite funny because they'd be walking past casually. And as soon as they saw anyone getting approached, it'd be like, bang. And then these people were just like getting knocked out and just left in the road. No one got mugged that night, not one person. And the night previously, the police had fucking 25 people ringing them up. "I've been mugged. I've had my car broken into, blah, blah, blah." We solved the policing issues on the next event. The police had plenty of complaints from would-be muggers, though. One night, we had two gangs in from Birmingham and Nottingham. The Brummies were from the Burger Bar boys. The crew shot that Letitia Shakespeare and Charlene Ellis on New Year's Eve a while back. And the Nottingham lot was some other equally fucking dangerous firm. For some strange reason, they can't come out for a night out, take a pill if it's their thing, or chill out with a few drinks, get laid, have a dance and go home. They have to start a fucking beef and start a fight. They began by carving each other up outside the venue, and then it carried on inside for hours on end. And eventually, we located them and threw them out. The Nottingham lot were trying to get back in, but because the doorway was so narrow, they could only get in single file. So we was like just battering them as they was coming in the door. One by one, they were just getting bashed, knocked out, and then thrown through the fucking fire exit. So there's all their bodies all outside the fucking front of this venue. We ended up carrying a few of them out and laying them in the car park. Most of them eventually fucked off, realising they'd bitten off more than they could fucking chew and that we weren't going to have it. But as four of the geezers walked away, one of them said, "Let's go to the car and get the machine." Now, for anybody that doesn't know what machine is, it's ghetto speak for a gun. So as soon as we heard that, we were fucking on them. I mean, we chased them down the fucking road. Now, we knew that if they got to the car first and they did have a weapon, they would actually pull it out and fucking use it. So we had to get on top of them quickly. Good job a few of the guys have run a few fucking sprints in their days. And I can relive it to this day. They literally managed to get inside the car and then they locked the doors and the driver's trying to fucking turn the ignition to drive off, but his hands are shaking, so he's like that. The passenger's fucking scrambling under his seat. And at this point, we assumed he was looking for the fucking gun. So the boys in the back were just petrified and yelling at the guys in the front. And we ended up just putting all the fucking windows through. And sort of when you put a window through and someone's in there, obviously they end up getting kicked in the face. A lot of the guys had mag lights and koshes. So they literally smashed the car to fucking pieces and literally ripped out every lead. They fucking done the tyres so they couldn't drive off. And now these guys ain't going anywhere. Do you know what I mean? It looked actually like the car had been put in one of those fucking crushers on a scrap metal place. One of the boys put the fucking windscreen through with a mag light. Someone done the fucking rear windscreen. Mark fucking leant in and gassed them. He had some CS gas and literally fucking gassed them. So they can't see a fucking thing. They can't breathe. They're choking. But they've got to come out. Getting a kicking outside will be a relief compared to what's going on inside. But we lean on the doors. The passenger finally gets his hands on a gun and loses a shot off, maybe two. But he's ripped away from him by somebody leaning in. We battered the absolute fuck out of this cunt. By the time we decide that they've had enough, the car, which had once been a brand new Mercedes, is unrecognisable. And so the geezers in it. And if you pass by, you'd have thought that these fellas had just been hit by a fucking train. It was that bad. They parked outside a gay club at the bottom of the road, and a little crowd had gathered outside watching. And we're like, there's nothing to see here. Go back inside, please. And we hurry back to the fucking club. And once I got inside, I got a bit paranoid. I mean, we really fucked up these guys. And I started thinking maybe, we've gone a bit too far, and I didn't want my mum or my missus around if there was going to be any sort of armed comeback. So I thought, you know what, maybe it's time to go home early tonight. And it was actually quite funny because when we got in the car, as we're driving past, my mum looks at the car and these four guys are sitting there all unconscious. And the police had arrived and would like literally talking to them. My mum's like going, oh my God, look, she said, I wonder what happened over there. Don't know, Mum, I said, kept my head down and hurrying her along as I didn't want the cops roping me in. Amazingly, they never put two and two together and the four boys from Nottingham never tried coming back. Other firms weren't as severe on these as we were and they paid the price. We were due to put on a rave at the Island in Ilford 2 weeks later. The venue door team had got hold of some muggers and threw them out. And as they did, one of these scumbags turned around and said, I'm going to come back and shoot you. To which the head doorman responded, yeah, mate, course you are. Fuck off or you'll get another clump. Trouble was, though, the guy was actually serious. So he went to his car, got his gun, walked back and opened fire. Calm as you like. He did the whole clip. One of the bouncers was shot dead and the head doorman got hit in the arm and the top of his shoulder and spent a week in intensive care. He turned up on air night, his arm in a sling. I took one look at him and I said to my lads, see that, fellas? Anyone who fucks around here tonight, we just smash him up so badly, they can't do anything. The head doorman overheard what I said and he went, you can't. I got fucking shot last week and one of my guys got killed. If you do that, they're going to go and get a gun again. Trouble was he was upset because he knew I was criticising him in front of his team. It nearly actually started a war between his door team and their door team. All the venue's doormen were going, what are you doing? You're going to get us all shot again. They started edging forward. We started edging forward. And there was like a little bit of a standoff. And I said, look, if you'd done your fucking job properly, that wouldn't have been able to come back and shoot anyone. For me, no way would I let anybody walk away after making a threat like that. It was enough for him to go to hospital. I don't think that's unreasonable force. You had to take it seriously. And a 2-week-old corpse in the local morgue was a fucking proof. Warrior held up his hands. Listen, guys, he's right. If someone says he's going to shoot you, you don't just let him fuck off. They could see the sense of what I was saying and it all got diffused. I understood their boss's attitude a bit. He was emotional. His mate was dead. He was in pain from his shoulder. He probably felt a bit of guilt about what had happened. But at the same time, we didn't want to be in that fucking situation ourselves. And funnily enough, that night we did catch a mugger who started making threats. And we beat him up, stamped his ankles and arms. I mean, really stamped. And roughed him up. He couldn't have gone and got a gun, even if he'd fucking had one. He had his driving licence on him. So we took it off him. Right, you c***. I said, we know where you fucking live. If we ever see you again, we're going to come round your house and do you in your house. We're not playing fucking games. He got the message. It wasn't just gangster punters who wanted to know. I got a call one day from a mate of mine telling me to watch my back because of some yardie guy. I was intrigued, as you'd expect. When we was doing our first rave at Brixton Academy, it turned out some Brixton firm was going around telling everyone I was paying them off so they didn't come and ruin my nights. My blood reached boiling point in seconds. It was like red mist time. I got my mate to pass a message on to the head of the firm. Gather your fucking boys up and meet me at the academy when we're there. I'll bring my boys along and we'll sort this out. Not too long after, I got a call from a guy and I got straight to the point. We need to come down for your fucking envelope. Look, mate, I just want to make it clear to you, I won't be paying you or anyone a penny in protection money. I said, anyone tries that with me, I'd rather pay someone 10 grand to kill them and bury him somewhere. I've actually got the money and I'm willing to do it. I'm just letting you know exactly where I stand on paying people protection money. The thing is, he knew that I had the connections and the money to do it. And this was probably not the sort of talk he was used to having coming his way. Would I have gone that far? No, absolutely not. But it's a bit like playing poker. You have to be able to play your fucking best hand and know how to bluff people to win. With Garage Nation, it was a constant fucking battle with these Muppets and their guns, you know. I even got to the point where I phoned the police. I offered to pay for an armed response unit to be parked outside their raves. It may have seemed like an odd request at first, until I told them who I was and why I wanted one. I offered to pay for it all, whatever the cost. I didn't care. I mean, you can't put a cost on the safety of a few thousand people, can you? I was the one who brought it all together, and I saw this as my responsibility. It wasn't just the punters. There was the venue staff, there was the venue security, there was the DJs, there's the MCs, there's my firm, there's my mum. You know, I know the venue security don't count as real people, I'm only joking. But I still didn't want them to get shot while I was there. I'd probably have to fucking mop all the blood up. The police told me they don't provide that kind of service for anyone. I asked what I should do if someone comes to the club and started shooting. And they said, you should call 999. In 1990, Public Enemy did a tune called 911 is a Joke. They should have actually released a UK version. If some fucker pulls a gun out, by the time we called the police and they arrived, the shooter would be fucking long gone. Unless we somehow managed to disarm him and got someone like John to fucking sit on him to keep him there. Or he happened to get shot by somebody else. The police really didn't want to bother themselves with helping to protect people or my livelihood. But they'd waste no time in shutting me down if people did start getting shot. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you tell all your friends about us, and we will see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.